So if I was starting to stack gold all over again, how would I go about it? Now, first of all, I would decide roughly what is a realistic budget for me in an average year. So let's say, for example, I come to the conclusion that I can afford about 3 ounces of gold in 1 year. Maybe for you it's 30, maybe it's 100, maybe it's 1 ounce, whatever it is. Doesn't matter too much. The thing we're looking at really is the principle of it and how it will play out. So I would decide what that amount is and then split that up between a number of months. Maybe you will be able to buy extra, maybe you come into a bit of a bonus from work or additional projects, something like that. But I would call that a bonus and not be reliant on it. So realistically, setting apart what you can each month and making a regular purchase. Now, some people prefer to buy more regularly, even if it means buying slightly higher premium coins. So generally speaking, I normally buy sovereigns if I'm buying fractional gold. But from time to time, I will buy something a bit more fancy if it comes up at a good price. And maybe if I think there is some potential for a coin to grow in value in the future. So for example, the current Tudor Beast series, the first couple of coins in the series, perhaps they will be a good play in the long run. But overall, I'm going to decide what it is I can afford to spend realistically, and I'm going to split that up into a monthly amount. So maybe you have some issues in saving and it's difficult for you. You get some money and you spend it and you just can't keep hold of it. So in that case, it's good to have a bit of discipline, but maybe it would be better for you to buy some smaller pieces of gold. So even though these quarter ounces do have a higher premium than something like the 1 ounce, then maybe it would still be better to actually buy some gold than to not. So I know people who, they'll get some money, they'll spend it, and at the end of the year they'll have no savings. They'll have spent everything they've earned. Maybe they've had a bit of fun, but ultimately, in the long run, they are going to struggle to really get anywhere in terms of their finances. So when you are buying, it is important to consider the premiums, but it does depend a little bit on what you're buying. Now, I don't mind paying a little bit of extra premium for these Tudor Beasts because I do think they will gain a bit of premium and hold that on the second-hand market in the future, like for example the Dragon has done and some of the other Queen's Beasts. But ultimately, if you can buy low premium stuff that's highly liquid in your area and just keep making these regular purchases, getting some good habits, you can soon start to mount up a fair bit of gold here. So perhaps your typical purchase is the quarter ounce, maybe it's a sovereign. Like I say, it doesn't really matter what that amount is, but let's say you get a bit of a bonus and perhaps for 1 month you can afford to get yourself a 1 ouncer. By all means, go for it. But I would be wary of getting too excited, first month of the year and like blowing your year's PM budget in one go. Then you're going to have exposure to just one area of prices, if that makes sense. So like for example this year, when the 2022, when the Tudor Beasts were first available earlier in the year, I think the first one cost me just under £380, and at the sort of highest price I've paid was 420 something. So although my average is a lot lower than the highest one, and it's a bit higher than the cheapest one, I didn't know what the price would do exactly in the time of the year, so I had to spread my purchases out. If you've got a good crystal ball and you can predict the gold price exactly and consistently, then perhaps you might be better buying all your gold right now, and that might be the cheapest point of the whole year. But gold could go down for a year or two, and in that case, you'd have spent all your money at the highest price. So just by picking up, a nice little quarter ounce each month, and maybe you get a bit of a bonus, over a couple of years, you could mount up to having a good number of ounces. Now, like I say, some people might be doing similar, but maybe 1 ounce is more suitable. I do prefer buying the 1 ounce as part of like my long-term stack because they are just a lower premium. If I can sell one of these it's easier than selling, 4 of those. It brings in money quicker. So if there's a time where I need something like £300 or £400, I'm probably not going to be selling gold to fund that. If I need 20,000 or 50,000, then yeah, I might start looking at something I can sell. It's not just going to be sat in my pocket, unfortunately. So over the time, like I say, you will build up a lot of different pieces, and you could, if you're buying small pieces, you could buy different things each time, and you'd end up with quite a variety. I personally try to keep it a bit more uniform, but like I say, just over time, averaging myself in, I've been exposed to all sorts of different prices, from £900 an ounce when I first bought any sovereigns or gold, which was back in 2018, and I think the highest piece would be, mid 1500s. So yeah, that's the advantage of cost averaging. And if I were starting again, I would make sure that I was buying low premium, highly liquid coins, and I would basically stick to, a rough monthly budget. Maybe some months I could spend a bit extra, but I would put aside a minimum amount each month. Now, I personally would rather just save, 2 or 3 months and then buy a bigger piece if I needed to, rather than pay, super high premiums for smaller pieces. But it depends, it depends on the person. I think if you are trying to get into stacking, and make some good habits, it's difficult to get into the habit if you're buying like once or twice a year. Whereas if you're thinking about buying, once a month, it does definitely make it easier to, keep on top of and just keep into those routines, really. It's a lot about routine. So although you might be better off, waiting for a couple of months buying a bigger piece, it might be that, you end up just spending all the money and end up with no gold. So consider the long term, what you'll end up with, and that is the power of just buying a little bit and often and how it can end up. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you would do differently if you were going to start stacking again. And if you are new to stacking, do you have a plan? Or are you just kind of buying little bits and pieces here and there, or buying what you like? Let me know. I'll talk to you in the comments.